At some point, almost everyone asks this question, usually around age 12. Sometimes again at 30, after reading something that made your stomach drop. If North Korea is really that bad, and by most measures it is, why doesn't someone just stop it? It's a reasonable thing to wonder. 25 million people living under one of the most controlled governments in recorded history. Concentration camps holding an estimated 80,000 to 120,000 people. A system where criticizing the wrong person can land 3 generations of your family in prison. A country where owning a Bible is enough to disappear. And the world just watches. Sanctions here. Stern statements there. And then nothing changes. So why not just end it? The sovereignty problem. The first obstacle is one most people don't think about until they actually try to think it through. Nations are sovereign. That word sounds abstract, but what it means in practice is this. The international community has spent the last 80 years building a system based on the principle that countries don't get to decide what happens inside other countries. That system has a lot of problems, but it's also the reason your country hasn't been invaded by a larger one. The moment you say, but North Korea is so bad we should override that, you've made an argument with no logical stopping point. Bad enough according to who, decided by whom, enforced by which countries, using whose military, under what authority. History is full of interventions that started with entirely sincere humanitarian intentions and ended in outcomes nobody wanted. The China factor. Here's the part that changes everything. North Korea shares an 880-mile border with China, and China has made its position clear for decades. A collapsed North Korean government means a refugee crisis on its border. It means a unified Korean peninsula, almost certainly allied with the United States. It means American military presence right next to Chinese territory. China is not going to allow that. China is also a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Any UN-authorized military action requires China's approval. That approval is not coming. This isn't a diplomatic oversight or a failure of negotiation. It's a structural fact. The country most capable of meaningfully pressuring North Korea is the country with the strongest interest in keeping it exactly as it is. The nuclear question. In 2006, North Korea conducted its first nuclear test. By 2017, US intelligence assessed it had developed miniaturized warheads capable of reaching the continental United States. This is not a theoretical threat anymore. Any military action now risks a nuclear response. Not necessarily a direct strike on the United States, but South Korea has 51 million people. Seoul, a city of 10 million, sits 35 miles from the North Korean border, and within range of thousands of conventional artillery pieces that have been pointed at it for decades. Military conflict on the Korean peninsula, even a conventional one, would likely kill hundreds of thousands of people in the opening hours. The math on that is not the math of a clean intervention. What happened to the last countries we tried to fix? In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq partly on the stated premise of removing a dangerous authoritarian government. In 2011, NATO intervened in Libya to prevent civilian massacres and remove Muammar Gaddafi. Both men are gone. Neither country is, by any reasonable measure, fixed. Iraq saw over a decade of sectarian violence. Libya descended into a civil war that's still ongoing. Regime change, it turns out, is the easy part. What comes after is the question nobody has reliably answered. North Korea is more isolated than either of those countries. Its population has been cut off from outside information for 3 generations. The institutions outside the military barely exist. Removing the regime without a serious plan for what follows doesn't liberate 25 million people. It creates a humanitarian catastrophe of a different kind. The people inside. Here's what gets lost in the geopolitical conversation. There are 25 million human beings living in North Korea right now. Not abstractions. People who were born there, who have families, who know nothing except what they've been told their entire lives. Any action that abolishes the government kills a significant number of them. Estimates of casualties in a full Korean War scenario run into the hundreds of thousands on the first day alone. Nobody has found a version of this that doesn't involve an enormous number of people dying to save an enormous number of people. That is not a reason to do nothing forever. It's a reason the question, why don't we just end it, is harder than it sounds. What actually works? The honest answer is that nobody fully knows. Sanctions have been in place for decades and have not changed the fundamental character of the government. Diplomatic engagement during the Clinton and Obama years produced agreements that eventually collapsed. The Trump-Kim summits of 2018 and 2019 produced photographs and no lasting change in North Korea's weapons program. What has shown some effect, quietly and slowly, is information. USB drives smuggled across the border loaded with South Korean dramas. Radio broadcasts from outside the country. The gradual infiltration of outside reality into a population that was told the rest of the world was worse off than they were. North Koreans who defect consistently say that encountering outside information changed something fundamental in them. It didn't free them immediately, but it planted something that the official story couldn't reach. The question underneath the question, here's what "why don't we just abolish it?" is actually asking. It's asking why moral clarity doesn't translate into action, why something everyone agrees is wrong can just keep happening. And the honest answer is that the world isn't organized around moral clarity. It's organized around interests. China has interests. South Korea, which would absorb the enormous cost of reunification, has interests. Russia has interests. None of those interests currently align in a way that makes the thing you want possible. That's not a defense of the situation. It's a description of it. What the history of comparable situations suggests is that these things do end. Not usually through dramatic intervention from outside. Usually through internal pressure, through the slow erosion of a system that can no longer sustain itself, through the spread of information that makes the official story harder and harder to believe. The Soviet Union didn't fall because someone abolished it. It fell because it couldn't hold itself together anymore. North Korea is not eternal. No government built on that level of enforced belief ever has been. The 25 million people inside it are waiting for something the world hasn't figured out how to deliver yet. Not because nobody cares, because the problem is structured in a way that makes caring insufficient. That's not a satisfying answer. It wasn't supposed to be.